There are 6 degrees of misfortune which can befall an army, none of which stem from natural causes, but all of which are the fault of the general. They are flight, insubordination, decline, collapse, chaos, and rout. Flight results when, on otherwise equal terms, one force attempts to attack another 10 times its size. Insubordination results when the rank and file soldiers are strong, but the officers weak. If the officers are strong and overbearing and the rank and file too passive, the result is decline. Collapse occurs when the senior officials forget their responsibilities and take personal affront at the enemy. They will then attack on their own account before the general has been able to assess the chances of success. If the general is weak and does not enforce discipline, if his orders are not clear, if there is no consistency for officers and men and organization is haphazard, all this results in chaos. When the general is unable to make an accurate assessment of the strength of the enemy, he will end up pitching a small detachment against a larger one, or a weak one against a strong one, without putting his crack troops in the vanguard. The result is rout. These are the 6 paths to defeat, and it is a prime responsibility of every general to thoroughly understand them. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Good morning, Bitcoin. Let's see what's happening today on Bitcoin Talk Show. Today is Monday, January 7th, 2019. The price of Bitcoin is $4,020, with a high of $4,110 and a low of $4,040. That's $1 for 24,718 Satoshis. Checking out our top stories today. Bitcoin exposed. Silicon Valley's ultimate aim, making money. Well, duh. I kind of thought it was all about money in the first place, right? A new currency, money. Oh, he came to Bitcoin as a journalist early when the price was $17, and he thought, what an incredible thought experiment. Some wizard had invented a virtual coin that could not be copied, an obvious problem for a digital currency, and that was announced to everyone who the owner of that coin was through a constantly updated, indelible ledger. There were no obvious uses yet, but I tracked down a few businesses that accepted Bitcoin, one in Vermont, one in Hungary, that nonetheless appeared agnostic about the whole endeavor. Even then, Bitcoin seemed like a potentially powerful online collaboration tool. Nice. Credits, Wikipedia, ominous signs. Ooh. Bitcoin and market cap. Gavin says he thought in Bitcoin in terms of market cap, how much Bitcoin was worth against other things. Ooh. No one knew how to take Bitcoin, different qualities. Interesting article about Bitcoin and Silicon Valley. Check it out at wired.com or in the links below. UK crypto exchange CoinFloor to launch trading of physically delivered Bitcoin futures. Well, we knew this, but this is good they're actually doing. They say it's coming on Monday, January 7th. They announced in an interview. Hey, that's today. All right. The consortium behind CoinFlex also includes early Bitcoin investor Mike Koromanovsky, United States investment banking firm Dragonfly Capital, and CoinShares, a UK crypto platform. According to Bloomberg, the new venture will be based in Hong Kong and headed by Mark Lamb, CoinFloor's coin founder. It'll offer Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum futures contracts to retail investors based in Asia starting in February. Good things for Bitcoin as physically delivered Bitcoin futures launch on the UK markets. And our main story of the day, Litecoin founder stokes debate over Bitcoin extremists. And we're going to get into this all over the place. We're going to talk about all the reasons that Litecoin needs to exist and why Litecoin is so important. Not. And here we go as Charlie Lee. Once again, we need to put out our prayer to Satoshi here. So Charlie Lee, the founder, the creator of Litecoin, which is again a copy of Bitcoin with 4 times the number of units, which uses a different hashing algorithm. That's what's unique about Litecoin. It's a copy and it has a creator. As Charlie Lee said, some self-proclaimed Bitcoin maximalists are actually Bitcoin extremists. They think all other coins are scams and will go to zero. Maximalist thinks Bitcoin is and will remain the dominant cryptocurrency, but there is room for altcoins to exist and even do well. So obviously we're going to start by breaking down this statement. We've got some parts here. He calls Bitcoiners extremists. So now it's on. We talked about this before years ago with Chris Ellis. We talked about when the maximalist term first came out, when Vitalik coined it as an insult to Bitcoiners. Now there's been an even more extreme insult now coined by Charlie Lee. Before this, people were also saying supremacists. Now people are even starting to use supremacists on their profiles. Giacomo, Jameson Lopp. I think some of those people are using, Bitcoin supremacists. We'll have to talk about that, what that means. But we're joined by Dan, the Crypto Raptor. How's it going, Dan? Can I get you a glass of Bitcoin extremists? Is there room for others to do well?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm doing great, by the way. Thanks, Tom. How you doing? You all good?
Doing good. New year.
Fantastic.
Trim the beard up. Ready for
Wow.
2019.
Looking swish. I like it. I like it. Yeah. So on the Bitcoin extremist sort of angle, you probably know. Well, you know me. I've kind of dabbled in my shit coins, and still hold a few. And I do think that sometimes there's a kind of tendency to, and I've always got to word this delicately because someone's always offended. But for Bitcoin, I don't know whether you call them maximalists or extremists, when they have a kind of a view of altcoins being just by default utterly useless and have no value. If they're that level of the end of the spectrum, Charlie Lee would call an extremist. I do kind of think that's akin to the existing financial infrastructure saying, our version's the best and there's no room for anything else and everything's crap. But at the same time, I do see that there's different levels of kind of almost how much you love Bitcoin. And I suppose the supremist or the extremist, sorry, kind of caters for the people that think there is only one full stop ever and there's nothing of value from anything else. So I suppose that there is a slight distinction, but whether you need to label it as one, because you're right, it does kind of come as not an insult, but kind of people take it a bit, maybe the word extremist has obvious other connotations. So calling someone an extremist in anything apart from extreme sports, I'm an extreme sports extremist, probably has negative connotations.
Well, first, let's just go down the line with this. When you find Bitcoin, I'm always shocked by what an incredible invention it is and how many different things it solves. So do people get excited about Bitcoin when they find it? Yes. What was your first thought? Obviously, I thought I'm going to copy that sucker. Everything that's digital, I'm going to make a copy of. I'm going to have so much money because I'm going to copy this stupid Bitcoin and I'm going to spend it. And you suckers are going to take it, right? But then you learn how it works, the double spending, all the kind of systems that stop that. Charlie Lee came out with a better plan. He just straight up copied Bitcoin. It was so amazing. He made a copy of it, and now it's called Litecoin. And boy, is it useful. What is it useful for? Oh, it does payments. That's what Bitcoin does. That's what the Lightning Network does. Oh, the Litecoin, this is confusing. Litecoin has the Lightning Network. Oh, that's good. So it can do payments like Bitcoin does. What's unfortunate for Charlie Lee here is that it's not just about whether we like altcoins or not. It's like, do you like the dodo bird? The dodo bird was awesome. It was a weird bird. It kind of walked funny. It wasn't a real good predator. I like sharks, right? Bitcoin's a shark. Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin doesn't care about Charlie Lee. It doesn't care about Litecoin. It's going to just shark right past this. And that's why this doesn't matter. There's something else going on here about the maximalism of Bitcoiners. Are you a TCP maximalist? Are you a Facebook maximalist? Are you a Twitter maximalist? Are you a YouTube maximalist? Does anyone use, I can't even think of the name right now, the YouTube competitor. It's called Vimeo.
Vimeo?
Right?
Vimeo, yeah.
Vimeo. Oh, I'm on Vimeo. Oh, Vimeo is going to be the best. Oh, Vimeo is a copy of YouTube, right? and Vimeo got there second. And Vimeo doesn't have the network effect of YouTube. Bitcoin is the Kleenex. Bitcoin is the Band-Aid. Bitcoin is the name of this industry. They're trying to rename it crypto and they're failing. Charlie Lee is trying to get you interested in Litecoin and he's failing. And it's also, once again, Satoshi Nakamoto, thank you for not coming back. Thank you for not making any statements about Bitcoin maximalism or Litecoin extremists or Litecoin fans or Litecoin heads or whatever they call Litecoin people. I know they call Ethereum people ETH heads, Ether heads and stuff like this. There's different names for people. I don't know what you call a Litecoin fan because I've never met one. Who cares about Litecoin except Charlie Lee? And also, once again, Charlie Lee sold all his Litecoin at the top, you suckers. We all should have sold when Charlie sold. He told us he sold. Again, I think he sold that for a good reason. He wanted to get out of the firing lines of everyone saying, oh, Litecoin's making you rich, blah, 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 blah. But he was just about to get on the other side with the rest of us where it goes, oh, Litecoin's getting you poor because you just keep holding, you dumb bastard. And Litecoin just makes you poorer and poorer and poorer. And that didn't happen to Charlie Lee. So that's why I like this part at the end where he says, and even do well, because it's about the money, right? We're going back to that first article. Silicon Valley Bitcoin to make money. She's got to feed the monkey, right? Had that not occurred to you, Charlie? So he's like trying to, buff up his fans, make them happy, cause some controversy. This is fake and artificial drama. And once again, thank you, Satoshi Nakamoto, for not coming back and not causing fake and artificial drama. Thank you, Satoshi Nakamoto, for not coining the term Bitcoin maximalist like Vitalik Buterin, hater of Bitcoin, who loved Bitcoin in the beginning. I love all this. I love the biblical nature of Bitcoin. You have this incredible thing, the God object, the Jesus object, whatever you want to call it. Then all around it, you have these people entranced by it, and they get pulled into its orbit, like Brian Armstrong, billionaire and CEO of Coinbase, pulled into its orbit, falls in love with a beautiful object, wants to try to control it with his company BitBank and Coinbase and the Coinbase Bank. And he's beautiful Bitcoin, I could control you, but then it escapes from him and it tumbles. And it's kind of like the Lord of the Rings here, where the ring falls. And Charlie Lee, also working with Brian Armstrong, creates Litecoin, a copy of Bitcoin. I'm going to control your greatness. I'm going to, you are mine, precious. This is my precious. And now he's arguing that his precious is better than the real precious. That's a tough argument. You seem like a guy who's lost the precious and needs to get back in touch with the precious. Then we have all these other people creating copies and Ripples and Stellars and Ethereums and Vitaliks and all these things, all trying to get the ring. But there's only one ring, right? There's a problem here. Like there's only one. And again, that's why we're getting into this extremists and this maximalists and whether or not Bitcoin is a religion and whether or not this is getting religious. And people have often said that the open source people were religious. Stallman is often described as a zealot, right? Open source zealot, Richard Stallman. And again, zealot, we'll look that one up for you. Zealot, a person who is fanatical and uncompromising in pursuit of their religious, political, or other ideals. So Bitcoiners, why are they zealots? Well, why should they compromise? Bitcoin's been running for 10 years consecutively with some software tweaks, some advertising by people and companies and individuals selling it to their other friends and so on and so forth, but otherwise generally successful. In fact, so successful that at one point the network was full of spam and it was full of use, and they decided, well, we should make another network on top of that network and keep going with that. So why should you compromise in the face of success? What do you think, Dan? True believer, young Turk, radical, fanatic, enthusiast?
See, well, firstly, new T-shirt, which is a Christmas one, because I'm a Bitcoin believer, but blockchain.
Well, we could say it's the Bitcoin blockchain.
Exactly, yeah. So the main thing is I got the Bitcoin logo on there. But at the end of the day, I'm open to looking at new technologies, and I think that it's maybe slightly naive or maybe too overprotective to automatically dismiss anything that could be competition. Now, I'm like, don't get me wrong, Bitcoin is the best. It will always be the best.
Yeah, but it's like Moby Dick. It's like, yeah, there's other fish in the ocean. It's like, are you a Facebook maximalist? Are you a Twitter maximalist, YouTube maximalist? I have no choice. I use these services. What about Google? Google was really good. I remember when it came out, I stopped using Alta Vista. I haven't gone back to Alta Vista.
Yeah.
You should buy some Alta Vista coins and those new Tron torrent coins that make you pay to torrent. That sounds good.
Oh yeah, I don't. Is it BitTorrent that are coming up with that? Is it BitTorrent?
BitTorrent that was bought by the cryptocurrency Tron.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, the new BitTorrent without Bram Cohen, the creator of BitTorrent, has created an amazing new thing, and no one remembers. You can go back and we'll Google it here, but someone mentioned it to me. I think they were called Mondo tokens, and they were torrent tokens before torrents, and they had a whole thing where it was all about how you could pay someone to torrent, which is what they just developed now as like, yeah, you can pay someone to torrent, but they're not going to do it. I saw another great libertarian article recently, the Marmot guy. What's his name? I forget, but he's on Twitter, and he's a lawyer, Preston Byrne. He did a Marmot project. I forget what it is, but he was all about, he quoted this article where it said, libertarians are cleaning trash out of national parks. And I was like, bravo, a couple of civic minded people, a couple hundred maybe, right? But that's not going to replace a regular trash service to come in and take that trash out. And it's absurd to make that argument, but we have the kind of people that are making that argument, and they're making that argument for torrent tokens. And we're going back in time. We're trying all the old things once again. Pets.com. Let's bring it back. I'm a pets.com maximalist. I think that pets.com is the only useful.com. But no, it's different with a network effect. It's not just that these other tokens aren't useful. They're plenty useful. They're just not as useful as Bitcoin for payments. Having a creator, we now have to say having a creator is a major downside for any new project. I mentioned Bram Cohen. Bram Cohen's creating a new token called Chia or whatever. It's like Bitcoin, but it's mined in a green way somehow, right? And Vitalik switching Ethereum to proof of stake and all these things, whatever. You have a creator, you're in trouble. You've lost control of the debate because you have to listen to the creator, or you're letting the creator lead and direct the company. Look at how Zuckerberg has led Facebook. Look at how the Twitter, I don't know if you guys have read it, but there's a book about Twitter called Hatching Twitter. It's really good. I read it a few years ago. And when Twitter came out, there was about 4 different people in charge of the idea of Twitter, and they all had different ideas about what Twitter would be, and they all backstabbed each other and murdered each other, and then there was one. And Twitter became weaker because there's one. Any of these systems that goes up to one person that makes the decision, instead of, basically, again, we're going to have a big debate on this, but instead of a scientific discussion and a community and kind of a board, maybe voting, maybe these kind of more decentralized, more cooks in the decision would be better. And just in general, not having a founder. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, it's interesting that the more, I know it's mainly primarily timings, and it's that's quite obvious, but because of the rest of the market. But as soon as Charlie Lee left, which I believe was pretty much the point where my mum bought all-time high after I was talking about crypto so much. As soon as he left, obviously things started to die for Litecoin. But so it's kind of ironic that the more decentralized it got, the cheaper it got. The more kind of the value was perceived to go down. But obviously the rest of the market factors kind of played into that, and the fact that everything was on a very much all-time high.
Well, that's the other thing. As soon as you have a founder, you have someone to blame. Your mom can put her blame solely on Charlie Lee. So you can say, Charlie Lee at Litecoin lost me my money. Everyone else can say Satoshi Nakamoto at Bitcoin lost us our money. But, what happened to that guy? We can't find him. We can't track him down. Same thing with Mt. Gox. When Mt. Gox lost everyone's money, that guy went there and held up a sign, Mt. Gox, give me my money. You had a place to go. That's the problem here. Charlie Lee shouldn't be getting involved in these debates. He used to stay academic. He used to stay above the fray, but he used to work for Coinbase. Maybe he just needs more money. I don't know. He sold all that Litecoin at the top. You think he'd be fine. You think he could lay out of these political arguments. But what we're seeing here is an interesting thing about people. It's not just enough to be rich. Roger Ver is rich. Charlie Lee is rich. Brian Armstrong of Coinbase, rich. They want more. They want political power. They want you to listen to them. They want their opinions to be influential and important. And that's why Charlie Lee is doing this. He's picking either he's got a marketing company and they're like, hey, let's do some marketing about Litecoin here by getting Bitcoin to pick on us, or he's just bored and he has this ego and he's all competitive and he has to weigh in, this weigh in. I have to weigh in because the community needs to know what I'm thinking. That's an interesting attitude and idea. What do you think, Dan? I thought we were going to be joined by Max almost for a second, but he disappeared. Is Litecoin a cult of personality? Is it time to start photoshopping some negative stuff here on old Charlie Lee? I don't think it's that bad, but
Well, I don't know. You probably can't ask me because I've got a soft spot for Litecoin. I don't hold any, but it was the first thing I mined. When I first got into Bitcoin in 2013, I realized very quickly. I thought someone said you can, these graphics cards or computing power can, could print Bitcoin, and I was like, whoa. I used to buy graphics cards just to be able to run them to see 3D mark, and then that's it. And so I started mining Litecoin, and I grew quite fond of it, and was using it I was selling it on PayPal at one point as well. So kind of selling it in fractions. That was before kind of PayPal had a bit, sorry, not PayPal, eBay, before they had a bit of a clampdown. And I don't know. I've got a bit of a sweet spot, but it's so difficult to say because I'm not going to lie. The more and more days go by, the more I become a Bitcoin extremist, because I love Bitcoin and I just think it's the most secure network on earth. I think that some of the reasons why people are not too keen on Bitcoin, maybe say from a resourcefulness perspective, world resources perspective, they may be slightly misled by the misinformation that's out on where the mining happens, what energy sources it comes from, etc. So I don't know. I think ultimately Bitcoin is the best, but like I said, I kind of like the fact that there's quirky other coins, and that means if I hated Litecoin, I'd have to hate Dogecoin, and who can hate Dogecoin?
Well, and you don't have to hate bad stocks. I don't hate Sears. I'm not out there saying like, Sears, you're a bad company because you had a retail decline and you used to do a catalog business and all these people lost their money. But at the same time, you can say, don't invest in Sears, right? Don't invest in Kmart. Don't invest in these old technologies. Just in the same way, if you want to be with the winner, if you want to be the one that has the network effect, and if you understand what network effect means, which again, everyone hates Facebook. We all want to leave Facebook, but we can't leave Facebook because they have our photos and they have our friends' photos and they're connected. And, we're in this network together and we can't get out. And other people could make a copy of Facebook and it could be perfect, technologically perfect. And people have tried. Google tried. The biggest company in the world tried to beat Facebook. They couldn't beat them. They couldn't get the people out of that web. And that's that network effect we have with Bitcoin. The more people get into it, the more people get into the ecosystem, the more they use Bitcoin and they use Lightning Network. And they're not going to use Litecoin. If they make a mistake and they buy Litecoin, they're going to use it. If they buy it as an investment vehicle or a disastrous decision, like poor Dan's mom, she's now the patron saint of Litecoin. Because I mean, my Litecoin story is bad, and I don't think about it. Because one time someone gave me a bunch of Litecoin, very nice donation back in the early days, and I sold it to pay a credit card bill. It was a good deal. I got the credit card bill gone, right? Then of course the next month the damn thing went from like $1 to $40, and I could have paid 40 credit card bills, and it was like, oh, I got more credit card bills. They kept coming. So no, I mean, we all have things with Litecoin and it was all cheap and whatever, and it's one of these stocks and everyone's always like, oh yeah, it's a real competitor to Bitcoin. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like MySpace. I mean, MySpace is a real competitor to Facebook. I mean, I really think any day now, and Google Plus, that really worked out. Google Circles.
Yeah, that's dead now, isn't it? Right.
Yeah,
They
it's
dropped that.
so
Yeah.
it's so dead. It had a security leak, and they had to kill it quickly because it was leaking people's information and had been for a long time. And once again, so how is Litecoin going to work out for you? Well, Bitcoin, there's going to be a security problem, and they're going to fix it on Bitcoin first. So you're going to be at risk if you're holding Litecoin. So Bitcoin's going to be better because once again, the best developers are going to go to Bitcoin. Even right now, you have all these groups with all this money trying to bribe the best developers and to knock them off their goal of making this unbelievable sound digital money that is the credit system. This is the credits backbone of the cypherpunk novels. So for everyone that's not up to speed here, who hasn't read all of William Gibson's books, haven't read most of Neil Stephenson's books, not associated with Isaac Asimov or Ray Bradbury or any of the other great authors of science fiction, Robert Louis Stevenson, other people like that, adventure writers. But what happens in the future is there's this money, and you can use this money to buy anything you want because it's money. And they call it credits or creds or flues or ziff or zoof or whatever. And maybe you wear a cuff on your arm, right? Maybe you have a cuff that, lets you send your money to someone, or you have this, phony thing that you carry around that like lets you send, this computer box that lets you send credits from person to person. Now the credits always seem to be kind of country, corporation, bank, government agnostic. And this helps set up the cypherpunk reality because anyone can sell anything to anyone. This is a revolutionary idea. This is a dangerous idea. Instantly, assassinations, medicine, drugs, violence, gambling, prostitution, milk, raw things. Everything's on the table because anyone can sell anything to anyone. That's a cypherpunk thing where viruses, malware, people's information, their dirty laundry, all the things you didn't want to be sold, politicians, celebrities' information, all sold to anyone because that's the cypherpunk market. And again, we just kind of throw all that in there and see what happens. Now, they've tried to control that with the internet. They've tried to control that with Facebook and bringing the networks into line, and with these kind of new politically correct ideas or the new old ideas that are back again, all that kind of thing. They're trying to control and to slim down that internet. But what happens is that real internet, that spirit of chaos, that Eris, that Joker, keeps coming back out because the internet allows this activity. The internet allows Bitcoin to exist. You can't stop Bitcoin without stopping the internet. So the two are intertwined. We have this uncopyable data that people can use to send value around because you can't copy the data. The old system is in trouble because of that concept, not because you can make a copy of the uncopyable data system and you can call it blue coin and you can say blue coin's better than red coin and it has certain features and things that are going to be it. It's because of that original network and the ubiquitousness of that network that it spreads out to everyone. Players of the left and the right side both use flues. They both use credits. No one is not using credits except when you have to go to the government. When you go to the government to pay your taxes, you trade your credits to someone for cash or for USD or for gov cred or whatever they're going to call it. Might even be a cryptocurrency. Probably will be. You'll trade your dirty internet Bitcoin money that no one can seem to get rid of, despite trying. No one can seem to beat, despite copying. No one can seem to destroy, despite adding new features rashly to other chains that can't scale, and then we'll die. Look at that report from the major firm the other day. Blockchain has no uses. The blockchain hype is way overbound. We've said it for years. Bitcoin, creating sound money. This is the problem of our time. This is the problem that Satoshi Nakamoto fixed. He gave people the ability to transfer funds anywhere in the world without a government or a centralized third party or a bank. It's amazing. Well, let's see what you guys have to say in the chat. Scrolling by, be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share. There I am. Woo! Thumbs up and a share. Let's see what's going on. I can almost read it there. This space is bigger than just Bitcoin. No, it isn't. Let's see. Barack Obama is trying to sell the internet to private hands. Oh. Oh, I mean, I think they mean changing the domain names over from the United States to An internationalist system. Yeah, no, I think that would be probably good. He means not having the internet owned by the United States. That's a complex issue. We are the immune
Decentralized.
system. Yeah, decentralized. We've got Max again, but his computer doesn't work. So let's again teach Max the lesson. Old people teaching young people. I'm having fun with Linux. I like Linux. Linux always works. You should use desktop Linux. It's ready now. It's ready now. It's ready now. No, I've been hearing that for 20 years. Desktop Linux is ready. Once again, my Macintosh microphone's working. But let's check back into the chat. They say, we are the immune system of humanity. And that's right. That's why sound money is so important. This is more important than paying for video games. This is more important than having a token or a credit. Oh, we've made an incredible new credit. It's called video game credit. You can buy all of your video games in advance now. Have you ever gone to the arcade and had trouble using the token machine, and then you had some tokens and you thought, I'm going to put another 20 in and get my tokens for next time so that I'm ready? No, you just buy tokens from the machine. The tokens don't become valuable. This is nonsense. So let's see. He says, Trump was the guy who said we wouldn't shut down parts of the internet. And beware anyone who thinks like this, even if they sounds what they say impossible. They can do anything. They can always shut down. Say Mac is the computer of choice for people who need their stuff to work all the time, every time. And that's right. I've always said, I used to value Windows. I used to use Windows for these reasons. You could get cheaper hardware with Windows because they supported more and different hardware. With a Mac, you had to pay more to get the fancy hardware because they just didn't support all that stuff. But that cheaper hardware was probably what was always killing my computers. So again, you get what you pay for, or you don't get what you pay for, and you get to reinstall drivers and learn how to untar things and how to create directory structures. And I mean, Linux is a great learning tool, and you can learn a lot of things. But you know, it's tough on the desktop. It just doesn't work the same way a Mac or even a Windows 10 or whatever the new Windows is. But it's okay. Max is he's gonna reboot into Windows or something. He's got a dual boot. He's got a solution for this. No, he doesn't. Dan, how's your computer running there? Dan's gone too. Well, anyway, this is Monday Morning Bitcoin Talk Show. We're going to do this every Monday morning. Dan's we're making his internet work well too. Atlan Cap says in the chat, he says, I work in the music industry and every single producer and mix engineer I know uses a Mac. And that's right. From a platform standpoint, when I want to edit video, I just use the Mac because it works. And then I don't have to mess with a bunch of other things. I spend my time messing with the video and making it perfect. So now we're Mac extremists as well. Charlie Lee has put us all on the cost and the path of forever extremism to me. So now we want to see, are you guys there in the chat? This is Monday morning, 9 to 11 a.m. We're going to be here every week on Monday, but only on Monday. On Wednesday, we're going to have a different show. On Friday, we're going to have a different show. And we're going to do the call-in shows on Monday. So this is your big chance to call in right now. You can Skype us at World Crypto Network, all one word, or call us at 518-600-1949. Maybe Max could even Skype us as well. Maybe his phone doesn't run desktop Linux, and he could call us up. So give us a call right now. If you're in the chat, you're trolling us hard, telling us how good Litecoin is, how hot Charlie Lee makes you. Give us a call. No one ever calls in and tells me how much they love their altcoins. I get so tired waiting for it. Let's see. They say, there's a reason Charlie is where he is, and you guys are where you are. And the guy in the chat
I love that. One of my old bosses, whenever he was slightly incorrect about something.
Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network, where we've just been called Bitcoin terrorists. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Dan from Grand Rapids. How you doing today, Thomas?
Hey, Dan. Welcome back to the show. How's it going?
Well, good. Hey, so I had a couple thoughts about Bitcoin terrorists and maximalists and stuff like that. I was listening to that show the other day. I think it was, I don't know, Tone and Jimmy were talking to somebody, some guy, and he was making an argument about the altcoins. And I was thinking what it comes down to. And I have some Litecoin, and I like the project. I think what it comes down to at the end of the day is that I believe some altcoins will exist because reasons, right? And I don't need a good reason. I don't need a valid reason. The reason I have some Litecoin is because I like Charlie Lee. And if you think about, okay, for example, what's the ideal block time, right? We don't really know. We don't know what the ideal block time is. And I think the Bitcoin developers would say, because we don't know what the ideal block time is, we shouldn't change what it is right now. So the altcoins, they can be more nimble as far as changing the technology goes, but I'm also maximalish as far as Bitcoin goes because I kind of think to myself, well, the guy that was arguing with Jimmy and Tone, he essentially kind of compared Bitcoin to a car. And the problem with doing that is I don't believe there's 100 years of innovation that we're going to do on the base layer. It's probably got 2 decades worth of fairly significant work to be done on it. And after that, it'll kind of be what it is. And most of the innovation will happen on layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, those kinds of things. So I do think that we'll reach a point of development stability in sometime in the future. And that's probably a couple of decades away. Meanwhile, the altcoins can be more nimble and just saying, hey, I'm going to create a coin with a 30-second block time because I think that's better than a 10-minute block time. Prove me wrong.
And I agree. This idea used to be that the altcoins were the test nets for Bitcoin.
Right.
It used to be that each one of these was a project, but now with the marketing and the money and the market cap, these test nets become their own project. I think they grow out of control. Go ahead, Dan.
I think here's the wrong way to think about that. It's not a test net for Bitcoin. It's a test net for global value transfer and medium of exchange, right? So to me, for example, when I take a look at Bitcoin versus Litecoin and people say, well, Litecoin's the same thing as Bitcoin, what's the point? I could respond to that and say, well, what's the point of Bitcoin then? Because if Litecoin is taking essentially 90% of the development from Bitcoin Core, and it's 90% the same, and the difference is the block time is different, who's to say that it won't be Litecoin that ends up being the global reserve currency and the medium of exchange and all that stuff? So I do get the whole, you shouldn't hedge your bets kind of thing. At the same time, we don't know who is going to take that number 1 spot. I think it's Bitcoin. I have like 80% of my holdings are in Bitcoin, but there's no law that says that single global reserve currency is going to end up being Bitcoin. So I don't think it's a bad idea to hedge your bets. And I don't think it's a terrible idea to say, look, we have some projects out here that are experimenting with things. I think EOS is a good example of that. I think of it as an experiment of a more federated type blockchain, right? It's because you're making compromises all over the place, right? Well, we want a global money that is totally immutable and blah, 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 right? Well, obviously EOS is not that. But maybe EOS gets us some stuff. Maybe it gets us part of the way there. And it's an interesting idea. Now, I would never tell anybody to go all into any of these because it's so speculative at this point. And people say, oh, well, you know, the value of this, that, or the other altcoin increased 200% while about Bitcoin stayed still. You can cherry pick stocks too and go, this weird pharmaceutical stock went up 200% and Apple barely moved or went down. Yeah, but what's the likelihood you're actually going to pick one of those? So I think picking stuff based on whether or not you think the value is going to go up, that's pure speculation, and you can gamble if you want. But at the same time, I do think that it's weird to say it, but because reasons, you know, like I liked Litecoin to begin with because I liked Charlie Lee. I thought, hey, maybe a little bit of leadership isn't such a bad thing. I mean, we in Bitcoin, we are so hardcore about the fact that there can be no leader, there can be no single point, there can be no person that takes the flag and runs with it. That we also lose the advantage of there being a single person. We lose the advantage of decisions will be made faster and easier. And it's a double-edged sword. So I don't know, maybe there's a little gray area in there to say there are room for these other things. And we can see now, right? Like based on the supply alone, Litecoin should be 1/4 of the value of Bitcoin. That's obviously not the case, right? If you look at the if you look at the ecosystem and you say, hey, these two are kind of the same thing. Litecoin has some interesting aspects to it. They've got, you know, individuals driving this thing forward and making choices. They've got the Litecoin Foundation. There is some advantage to that, but I don't think that Litecoin should be 1/4 of the value of Bitcoin. At the same time, I don't know what, like I say, what's the ideal block time? I don't know. I don't know if anybody does. Not until this thing gets to mass adoption.
We'll just have to see. A lot to unpack there. I have some notes. Part of it, I agree with you. We're having all these test nets. I feel like we're driving a station wagon full of kids, and Bitcoin's in the front driving the car, and we keep having to say, pipe down, pipe down. We're going to pull the car over because the problem is here, we might lose track of our goal. Our goal is sound money. That's why we need to put all our arrows together, maximize our force, attack at one point, and really flip this thing. And people are saying in the chat that there's many currencies in the world right now, but I think we're trending to just a few. And everyone knows that the US dollar is the #1 currency because they trade oil in it. In the same way, if Bitcoin becomes the currency of data and data is the new oil, then Bitcoin challenges the dollar. And once again, you want to trade your data for Bitcoin. It's about convenience. It's about all the other advantages that you get when you only have one money, when you have things united. There's like when you only have one Facebook, when you only have one internet, when you only have one Twitter. If I had to check 4 different Twitters, it wouldn't work. I would quit Twitter 3 and 4. I would stick with Twitter 1 and 2, something like that. You said that
Right.
we're talking about, and yeah, there's lots of marketing, there's distractions, like there's things that are going to drive us off this road that we're trying to drive with this car full of kids. And we're losing all these people to the money and the distractions and the, I have the token and now I have the value. And I agree with you that the leader, there is some advantages to having a leader, but there's also disadvantages. Charlie Lee is driving the car of Litecoin. He's having this debate discussion that we're having thanks to him. But we're wasting our time on this debate discussion thanks to him. It doesn't help Bitcoin. It doesn't help Litecoin. Like you almost said, a centralized and single leader is a single point of failure as well. And Bitcoiners try to avoid that. We're seeing that now in the political system with Trump. We have this single executive trying to be a king, threatening to use emergency actions to get what he wants, when he just had a perfectly good Republican Congress that could have given him what he wanted if he just asked 2 weeks or a month or two before the term. But that's the trade-offs, right? The old system, the American system, is the slow government, the slow decisions. Things have multiple houses.
You're
right?
a historian. I mean, you know this, that when the founders set up the Constitution, You know, you look at a dictatorship, and you look at a democracy and a republic, and I can't remember what rule of the wise is, oligarchy, something like that. And you know, from what I learned, the founding fathers tried to set up a system that gave us all of the advantages of those particular political forms, and then set up checks and balances to counteract all the disadvantages. For example, if every decision that the president made had to go through Congress first, we would be immobile. We wouldn't be able to do things like, or at least in the past, and maybe even today, disaster relief. And maybe there is a war situation where we have to make a decision today about sending troops somewhere. And you can't pull together the Congress. It's got to be one person making that decision. And again, they're checked and balances. It's same with, you know, rule of the wise. We have, you know, this idea of the court system and the Supreme Court, where they're in there for life. So they're not supposed to be swayed by the, you know, the day-to-day swaying of the political needle. And those all work supposed to work in harmony to give us advantages of those systems. So again, I think that we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater necessarily and just say, well, having one person lead the charge is a single point of failure. Therefore, we should just completely throw that out and be unwilling to accept anyone as kind of in a leadership position. So that's, again,
that's kind of the lesson. That's the lesson of the 20th century, right? That's what we're starting to learn. People are losing faith in these centralized leader institutions. I do think we're going to see more committee-driven governments, and that Satoshi, again, by virtue of his disappearance, has practically become like the founding fathers. We now have to discuss what was Satoshi's original intent. Why did Satoshi do this? Why did Satoshi do that? Whereas Charlie Lee, we can just go ask him. And more importantly, you can take a gun to his head and you can say, roll back the chain, make Litecoin faster, add these hooks or whatever I need so I can get my special project into Litecoin. These are the problems of having a founder. Like, these are the advantages of having a Satoshi and not having this person.
But I think realistically, like, for example, Charlie could whine and cry and bang his gavel, and nobody's going to roll back the chain. I don't think he has maybe as much power as, and even Vitalik for that matter, because, you know, as we well know, that it's the balance is not set up to do that. You know, he may be the leader of the development community, but the development community is not the only voters in the system, right? So you still need the miners on board. You still need all the nodes on board. You still need the users on board. And he can't just dictate something and have it happen. And I feel like some of the stuff that's coming out of Bitcoin maximalism is they're kind of arguing straw men sometimes. You know, I saw a tweet from Tone not too long ago where he was slamming somebody who gave Litecoin kudos for pushing SegWit. And it's like, it's okay to be okay with that. It's okay to say, hey, you made a technological choice that you felt would push the technology forward, and you did that at risk to your network. And we can say that that was a good
I don't think there was really that much risk to their network. They took software from the greatest software project and used it on their little Litecoin, and they were valuable for a very short time period because of political reasons. We had political problems in Bitcoin. We couldn't get the upgrade through.
Right.
Litecoin was valuable as a test net but that doesn't mean you should have this market share and this capital. And should it have more funding than NASA because it was valuable for 2 weeks?
Well, I don't think it has more funding than NASA, right? I mean, that's the other thing is too, the market caps are so skewed, especially because if you take a look at Bitcoin SV right now, right, is all they're doing is taking the supply times the last traded. I would be curious, and I don't know how you'd get the statistic, to say how much investment capital actually went into the coin, right? So and if Litecoin, I don't think it did not fork the chain. So you could say all the investment capital, that the market cap does represent the investment capital.
Well, the big
Of
thing
course,
about Litecoin back in the day is it had a fair launch, that Charlie Lee didn't pre-mine it and that his friends didn't pre-mine it, and they kind of released it. They're like, we're going to release it next Friday. And then they released it next Friday. And everyone had a chance from Friday on to mine Litecoin. And I guess we all should have. So
right?
yeah.
Well, I think the other thing too, and I'll get off after this comment, but I think the other thing to keep in mind is that if you're Charlie Lee right now, and you have realized that the maximalists are all right, and that your coin is probably going to be worth nothing in the future, and that Bitcoin is really has all the utility and functionality of your token, and it doesn't make any sense to have two of them. What do you do at that point? do you come out in the public sphere and say, oh, by the way, everybody should sell their Litecoin because it's totally pointless? Or do you say, I'm going to create a reason for this to exist, because there are so many people depending on its value right now. So I think they're people like him and Vitalik and the others that have pushed their tokens, and I agree, there's like 95% chaff in the wheat, but I do think that people will choose other tokens, other mediums of exchange, or whatever it is, because there are attributes that differentiate them from Bitcoin. And whatever those reasons might be, even if they're not rational, right? We all know that the market is not rational. So even if they're not rational, they will exist. And there is a reason for them to exist, and it's so that people can make choice. The other thing that I just wanted to mention real quick is that I think there's this weird misnomer about Bitcoin maximalists, that people think that maximalists want to enforce something. They think that maximalists are saying, well, there should be a law that you can't create your own coin. There should be a law that you can't use your own coin, and you should be arrested if you're going to. I think the confusion is that maximalists are saying, look, if you have gravity, things fall down. And it is a natural consequence of both the game theory, the economics, and just how things work in the world, that we will all consolidate to one protocol because it just makes the most sense. It's not that we're saying that people should be forced to do anything or people have to do anything. It's just going to be a natural evolution of the distribution of the protocol. So that's all I've got to say about that.
Well, I think you nailed it there, Dan. I think that's exactly what pisses them off, that the Bitcoin maximalists are so, I would say, callous about it. And again, for me, it comes back to evolution. Darwin didn't write the rules. Darwin wasn't saying, fuck you, turtles, right? Darwin wasn't saying, you're going to, these animals, that dodo is doomed. He's saying, like, I'm going to cut you off, like, you're done. No, Darwin's just saying, it looks to me like the dodo is not going to survive in any other environment. And if you destroy this environment, for example, those couple of weeks there where we needed Litecoin to test out SegWit, what does it do outside that environment? What is its value? So I agree with you about that. It's like gravity. Things just fall down, and that things are going to fall down into the slots where Bitcoin becomes the world's reserve currency, and it becomes a useful way to send money around.
The mistake that we shouldn't make is that, for example, if if you look at, speaking of the evolutionary thing, if you look at Nietzsche's Superman, right? A long time ago, I read the book Seawolf. And what you can't do is you can't say, oh, somebody that has these attributes is the pinnacle of the evolutionary chain, because it doesn't work like that. Essentially, what you're doing is in that case is you're saying, I know the attributes that it takes to survive the most effectively. So you're making a big assumption when you do that. You can say, I know the person with the greatest survival traits will survive, but if you feel like you're the only one that can anticipate what those traits are, then I think you may be overvaluing your opinion. Because again, if I go back to the 10-minute block time versus the 2.5-minute block time, we don't know which one of those is best. We don't know which is right. My understanding of the history of the thing, the 10-minute block time was kind of arbitrary. And it's been working so far, so we feel like it kind of works. And because of the reluctance to say, if we don't know, we do nothing, which I think is the smart way to do it, especially when you're talking about, global money. At the same time, to assume that I have all the knowledge that it takes to make this thing the top of the evolutionary chain is a big assumption.
I think that's fair. That's a fair analysis of the situation. But what works? So gotta
Right.
get rid of this emoji
Right.
thing.
All right, I'm gonna jump off. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for the call, Dan. Give us a call anytime.
Okay.
Great call.
Thanks, man. Bye.
All right. And so we heard from Dan there. That was a great call. What do you think, other Dan? Do you agree with Dan? Do people hate the maximalists because they're saying gravity, things just fall down. Things are just going to fall into this place. Survival, that we do have some kind of an idea that we do believe that we know what will survive based upon these other examples, based upon Facebook, based upon the internet, based upon YouTube, based upon how people gather, how networks are formed, the value of networks. Every new person that starts using Bitcoin adds value to the network. I don't have the spider web chart in front of me, but you've all seen it. Network of 3 people is valueless, but a network of 20 people is like Facebook. We all have a friend that can borrow a car. We're in business. We've got an Uber now. We're set. We need 100 people. We need 1,000 people.
Yeah, so it's funny because there's so many different kind of conflicting logical statements, or what would be logical to me may not be logical to someone else, even if you're looking at it kind of as objectively as possible. So, for example, when saying, no one can lie about the fact that Bitcoin in its current status isn't a fully usable cash system, but Lightning Network, and I've been using Lightning, and Lightning is amazing, and that's really, really cool, really useful. I've been drawing on Satoshi's place and sending micropayments to people and just having fun with it. I also just got signed up to the tipping bot, the Lightning tipping bot as well. But at the same time, if you see from an outsider's perspective that Bitcoin can't do as many transactions per second at the moment, for example, as maybe other blockchains. And although Bitcoin's working on a Lightning network, and I love it, I think it's amazing. I've got my Noddle box and I literally keep on playing with it. I think Noddle's just got Ride the Lightning as well, ready to roll, or rolled out today. But the fact is that if from an outsider's perspective, or someone that's maybe a bit naive about it, or even not, the fact is that if another blockchain can claim that it achieves the same as Bitcoin, but without the Lightning network, then that's going to pique some interest from people. And it will give them what they believe to be a logical reason as to why there is a good reason for other cryptocurrencies to exist, because it adds competition. And and competition limits complacency, keeping things on their toes. Now, I keep on going back to the energy thing, but I saw a really good quote earlier. Sorry to what's it called? Segue. Because there's one of the biggest arguments against Bitcoin is the resources. It's becoming the bigger and bigger every day, and it's very sensational for the media. And there's a couple of tweets I just wanted to highlight. Now, first of them was Dennis Parker, who said that Bitcoin is a race to the cheapest energy source, which was quoted by, I think it's Elkim XOC, saying long-term Bitcoin is a race to the greenest energy source. And that really kind of struck a chord. I thought it's a very interesting point, because it will create demand for more cleaner energy, because if you can create an abundance of clean energy, then you can give yourself more Bitcoin, essentially. So I do like that perspective. But going back to the competition, at the end of the day, there's going to be differences. People are going to have preferences. Bitcoin's still got the stigma of terrorism and Silk Road and all that people sort of run a mile. And it does also have, and this is another way of thinking about it, it also has a continuous barrage of hatred from the mainstream media. And so, for example, Hansen, Aldo Hansen, from the ECB in Estonia, he again quoted today something like, Bitcoin's dead, blah, blah, blah. And it's the average thing. That's it. He said, Bitcoin, crypto assets are nonsense, and Bitcoin's going to die. And so, again, from an external perspective, you've got someone who's new coming in, and they hear about Bitcoin. They see the big economists hating on Bitcoin, but they don't see them directly saying about another cryptocurrency. So that again could be a bit more kind of reason for people to think, oh, this Bitcoin's a bit sketchy, but this other one, no one's slating that right now. The ECB hasn't come out against it. Nouriel hasn't started a hate campaign against this other shitcoin. Therefore, it might play into Bitcoin and give it some competition.
And of course, we should let Bitcoin take this hate. Bitcoin is ready. Bitcoin's founders don't care about this hate. Satoshi doesn't care. Bitcoin's not going to stop doing what it's doing because of this hate. And it's also important to identify why things are valuable and what things are valuable. You said that other currencies have faster transactions and more transactions per unit or whatever. They don't have the same security of Bitcoin. So you have to start at this level of security, censorship resistance. Then you go down and you say, well, is it fast? Is it convenient? And you're like, if it's not secure, if it's not censorship resistance, who cares how fast it is, right? If it gets you busted, basically, as horrible as it all is, we're all characters in a Tom Clancy novel now. I read them early on, so I'm prepared. But you're all characters in a Tom Clancy novel, and you all have to use password managers, and you have to use 2FA, all this security to keep your data safe, because people are trying to get your data. They're trying to get your Bitcoin. They're trying to get your value, and they're going to try to convince you to leave Bitcoin to go to other projects to get your value. But you're going to get less security. You're going to get faster transactions, but less security. There's a big article going round around now. Ethereum's going to cut 90% of its energy use. How much percent of their security are they cutting by going from proof of work, Satoshi's solution, to a big problem that the cypherpunks couldn't fix? Adam Back's solution that Satoshi used in his project. But still, if people get confused if you say Adam Back Satoshi, but because he's not, no, Nick Scopel. But still, Vitalik knows better. They're going to switch to proof of stake. They're going to save energy, but they're going to lose on security. So you have to look at these trade-offs. Bitcoinists, extremists, zealots, as we talked about, are people who are unwilling to make trade-offs. They're unwilling to make compromises because of the security and the long-term success of the project. So yes, Bitcoin could have made compromises. Vitalik could have built Ethereum on Bitcoin, but they were unwilling to compromise. Other projects tried to insert data into Bitcoin. We could have made everything bigger. We could have said to Factom, when Factom tried to store their data, say, hey, we'll make it bigger. We'll have more leases. We'll have more information. Oh, you want to store articles in the Bitcoin blockchain? We're going to put articles in there too. We're going to put blog entries. Oh, how about video? Can we put video in the Bitcoin? Oh, why not? Let's put some video in there. And we could have made the blocks really big, and we could have made the servers really big, and we could have had all the world's data in one blockchain. If it made any freaking sense scientifically, if it made any sense. This is a scientific project. Why didn't they do it? Because it wouldn't work, because they tested it and it didn't work. Why are they doing it now in smaller batches that don't scale? Because it works in smaller batches that don't scale. It works in a short-term time. These things are all coming down. We're all learning about, Ethereum, why it can't scale, these other projects, why they can't scale, and maybe they come up with solutions to it. I'm saying right now, as people have invested, as they've blown up these huge market caps for things that can't scale, things that aren't as good as Bitcoin.
Yeah, I saw a good point actually that Knocked in the chat makes, which is regular people don't care about how shit works. They just want it to work. And again, I think from a usability perspective, I love using Bitcoin, but some wallets are a bit more. There's a lot more usability now if you're not running a QT wallet, but from running other wallets. And from confirmation times, etc. So whilst there is competition that can work on a functional level, people will believe that there are good alternatives to Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is improving day by day. And yeah, keep on going on about Lightning Network, but obviously Lightning Network's helping that. Sidechains, I think, are going to be obviously quite a big thing. Not sure what time scale that's going to be, because I know quite a few projects. Obviously, Liquid's one of the biggest one everyone knows, but when they're going to become a really big thing. But I do think they're going to be an integral part of Bitcoin in the future.
And I think the same point you were making, Dan, is shared by Tune In Dropout. Thanks so much for the $10 donation. He says, the block time could be looked at more as a standard than an optimized value. He's not saying there isn't a more optimal value, but who's to say that the Troy ounce is optimal? And he's right. The amount of weight in an ounce, which has been fluctuating recently as they attempt to tie that down at a very small scientific level, it's just arbitrary. It weighs an ounce. Window. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
God, guys. Hey, Thomas, it's me, Tone. How are you doing?
Oh, sounds just like Tone. Tell us about the market. Is it going up or down?
It's not looking good, guys. It's really not looking good. I've been doing a lot, traveling. I tell people what to do, but I don't actually trade. So, it's a thing. It's like a sex line. But anyway, how's it going, Thomas? You know who this is, Cryptloco, coming
All right.
straight from Mexico. You know what I mean? How are you doing?
All right, Cryptloco, we're doing good. What's on your mind about Bitcoin this morning?
Well, let me change over to my actual. Hold on, sorry, just one second. That's probably better. Well, I think I wanted to just kind of cover just one thing, but I just wanted to put it in the context of some of the other reasons that I've called, because I've been kind of keeping track of the phone calls that I've been calling into this show now for a while. And every time I call in, I have a different thought about something that I think is wildly misunderstood about Bitcoin. I think the first time I called in, I was talking about wallets and how I think people are very confused about how to use a wallet, what a wallet is, what the function of private and public keys are. Then I called in about mining, and I was talking about how, China is not going to stay dominant in mining forever, and all kinds of aftermarket purchases are being made of mining equipment, and you have Brains OS, and the future of mining is looking a lot better than it did, specifically for Bitcoin because of the SHA-256 algorithm. Then I called about the price and how I think that people then I called about the price, and I talked about how I think that there's a greed that underlies the price expectations, as opposed to just using BTC when you need to for whatever your particular use case is. It distorts the perception of Bitcoin. And then last time I called in about the Lightning Network and how it might turn Bitcoin into more of a website than, whereas people want to say that Bitcoin is going to be the internet or whatever. All the time, though, I really do believe in Bitcoin, and I think that Bitcoin has spawned a lot of this interesting discussion. But today, what I wanted to, I think that where all of these things come to roost is the exchanges. So I wanted to talk about that because I think it's an interesting topic, especially in the context of all this altcoin discussion. I saw the thing with Jimmy and Tone, and I thought it was pretty embarrassing because I think that there really is a secret hidden that ties into all of the things I just got through saying about how, price dictates Bitcoin maximalism. And it's kind of like the problem with that idea, though, is that there's always going to be exchanges. When we talk about buying the dip, you buy the dip on an exchange. And the exchanges, I'll step through this. So in order to buy Bitcoin, at least now, you need an exchange, even if that's local Bitcoins. And I would venture to say that most people don't use local Bitcoins. If we're going to get widespread adoption, most people are going to use things like Coinbase and things like that. And of course, we all know the history of exchanges. I was a Crypto user. I was a BTC user. And as Craig Wright said, it was basically like a giant illegal gambling casino. Of course, they all, most of them exit scams.
Well, I definitely agree. Exchanges are the issue. It's where the money goes in and out. It's where the KYC needs to happen or doesn't need to happen, depending on your local government, etc. And it's definitely the point that we're seeing the drive now. But to cut to the chase here, do you think the exchanges care about altcoins only because they get the fees for altcoins? So when someone out there like Charlie Lee goes out there and challenges Bitcoin, says Litecoin's as good as Bitcoin, you got to figure Coinbase is back there counting the money they're going to make off those Litecoin fees when all these investors come in, because you make money when they buy the Litecoin, and you also make money when they sell the Litecoin, even if they sell at a loss, right? You make money either way.
That's what I was just about to say. You got it exactly right. As long as we have exchanges, they will tend to want to sell more units. And as long as they want to sell more units, there will always be altcoins. So what Bitcoin unleashed on the world is this new framework that's being developed right now, because the exchanges will eventually have to go towards regulation. And then we just recreate the stock market again. And then we just have all of this altcoin frenzy because people see the altcoins going up and down. I mean, you and I know about all of the history of that. And so it's going to be hard to say that Dentacoin is a bad idea if people are making, outsized returns. So what I'm saying is that I think that when we talk about altcoins, we really need to frame it within the context of who's really responsible for these altcoin pumps. I mean, another thing too that I hear a lot that I think isn't true is that altcoins can die, because I think if it's delisted and like Coinye, I mean, I'm a bag holder of Coinye, and I joke about it.
It's going to come back.
It's real. I don't know if it is going to come back. That would be cool if it did, but and I would be right there on the exchange, right, selling my Coinye, dumping my Coinye. So I mean, so there's this kind of hidden.
It's so funny. Quick side note on the Coinye. It's funny because I got a bunch of that back in the day because they had a tipping bot, and I also got a bunch of red coin. And the red coin I think I managed to sell for like $20 or whatever. And the Coinye I could never get it to sell or whatever because they closed all the exchanges. Then the crazy red coin goes up in value. Coinye continues to not exist. It's just funny the way things work out.
I think that's an interesting story for altcoiners and Bitcoiners to think about, is that was an example where I had this Coinye and I thought to myself, wow, this is a real good test of Bitcoin's ability to succeed despite regulations, because I thought at the time, you can't kill an altcoin. You can't kill a coin. They're always going to be around. Everybody's going to mine, or there's going to be somebody mining it or whatever. But then I quickly realized all it took was Kanye getting his lawyers to send the developers a cease and desist notice saying, no, you can't do this or I will sue you. And then they just ran away. So, I mean, you can kill a coin. I mean, it's actually happened. So, I mean.
Well, and the same thing happened with Bill Murray coin. People thought that Bill Murray doesn't have attorneys, he doesn't have agents or whatever. He'll never sue us. And eventually somebody figured out they were using Bill Murray's image on the graphics and they were calling it Bill Murray coin, and he got it shut down. So eventually they do die. Some of them die.
Yeah. So if you have a deck of altcoins and, you know, and you use an exchange, I think that, you know, this is why we have altcoins. But to put it all into context, I think what's going to be interesting is to see how, if let's say Amazon or Facebook created their own coin, or let's just say they cloned Litecoin. Let's just say that, because they wouldn't even buy it. They wouldn't invest in Litecoin. They would just make their own Litecoin. And if it was Lightning compatible, let's say, and so you have a deck of altcoins, you have your Bitcoin, you have your Litecoin, you have your, I mean, I don't know, there's a billion different coins or whatever, but if you have a deck of coins and you want to get off your Amazon coin and change it over to some Bitcoin, it seems like that's going to be possible on the Lightning Network. So there's no, I mean, you know, the whole idea of which layer one, which layer two, the Lightning Network explicitly can exist without Bitcoin. Lightning Network was created as kind of like an outgrowth of the inability of Bitcoin to scale, and it will never scale without Lightning. So Lightning can live on without Bitcoin necessarily, from my understanding. And maybe the callers or maybe somebody can correct me on that. But as long as you can do an atomic swap between Monero or Facebook coin and Bitcoin or Litecoin, it seems like all of these issues will become a moot point down the road. But of course, we're not there, and there's a lot of development to happen. I'm really interested in the Neutrino wallet. I think that that's really an interesting project. But anyway, that's all I had to say. I'm sure that'll be enough. I'm sure that'll be enough to talk about. Other than the one thing that I will say about the altcoins that are interesting, which will be interesting to play out, but people are so scared to talk about it that this discussion is kind of it's polluted with people trying to show their project, is the smart coins or smart contract space. I just saw something recently where you can buy parts of a mortgage of New York real estate with an ERC20 token, you know, and I know that that's not news to anybody because it's been going on, but I mean, that could eventually develop into something that, whether it's built on EOS or whether it's built on Bitcoin or whether it's built on Lightning Network or whatever it is, that will be an interesting fight to see play out, because I'm not necessarily thrilled about Ethereum or EOS or any of these other things. They all seem super scammy, but they have facilitated the ability of people that work in the real estate market to avoid the banks and send out their own coins, which I never foresaw as a real use case for Ethereum, but it is happening, and you can buy those on exchange. And I guess it does add some kind of utility for them. So that'll be kind of interesting. But so that's the only space of altcoin. I think all the other altcoins will all just be rolled in. The ones that are Lightning Network compatible will just be all rolled into one, you know, wallet, and you could just do whatever you want. And if you don't take Monero, you don't have to take Monero, and you just won't be able to transact with somebody, or you'll do an atomic swap. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's all I was going to say. Is I think the exchanges are getting away with a lot here. We're over here fighting amongst ourselves about Litecoin, which Litecoin is a stupid coin. It's a stupid coin because the value proposition of Litecoin is that there's more of it and it's cheaper. And this idea that it was supposed to ever have like some fraction of Bitcoin's value was an idea that I bought into. But what I've seen is that Litecoin tends to they all tend to kind of go up and down with Bitcoin. So, I mean, unless you have some insider information and you know that Redcoin is going to pamp, then you're just kind of following the rest of the market as other people do. But anyway, that's all I was going to talk about was the exchanges this time. I think that's kind of where everything, like I said, kind of comes together. But what I always try to leave with some kind of advice, or some kind of a song. And today, what I was thinking about, aside from all of this stuff, and I'll leave after this, is people say write too much in this space. Have you ever noticed that? People always say they'll be like, Richard Hart was really good at that, and so was J.W. Weatherman. They say, they make a claim, and then they say, right, and then they just keep going, and it's like, you don't really have a chance to say like, no, I don't think all coins are going to fail, or let's expand on that, because they're just like, say right, and then they just keep going on. And especially when they're talking to themselves in a YouTube video, saying right is something I've never observed you to abuse that word, but I see a lot of people abusing that word, where it's like, you know, Litecoin's going to go to the moon, right? So, and then they just keep going, and then it's like, well, hold on, wait a minute. I don't know if I agree with that right. The right word is very sacred, and it should be used only when you're talking about like, we shouldn't kill a bunch of babies, right? Like, that's the way that I would normally hear the word right. But something I've noticed is something to pay attention to when you listen to people talking in the crypto space.
All right, good stuff.
Man.
All right, thanks so much, Crypt Loco, for the call. Give us a call anytime. Good stuff. A lot to unpack there. On the right thing, yes, people do seem to agree with themselves in the crypto space. I think that could happen a lot. You got to watch for that. I think that's a good point Crypt Loco left us with. As far as Ethereum and these other projects spreading Bitcoin or spreading the goodness of cryptocurrency being, you know, part of our army, even if we don't notice it or even if they don't realize it, I'm not so sure. I picture it more as, I see this really strong guy with a torch, and he's really excited because he's discovered fire, and he's bringing it back to the village, and he's running around from house to house. Check out this thing I found. Check out this fire. It's so awesome. And he's lighting all the wicker houses of the village on fire. And he finally gets to the tribal elder. He's like, I found this fire. It's amazing. It's on my torch. Check it out. And he turns around and he sees he's burned the entire village. So I worry about the consequences from giving this to these people too early. Do we want smart contracts? Yes. Are they ready? No. What are we doing to see if they're ready? Well, we're putting millions of dollars in them and hoping they don't break. And when they do break, we go whoopsie and we roll back the chain, and no one even realizes this should be an academic project. This should be a graduate school project. This should not be a $1 and $billion project. It's too soon. But
well, on
these
that,
are investors are looking for advantages. Go ahead, Dan.
on that, you know, rolling back the chain, I think Robert Graham's just pointed out, and it seems to be all over Twitter and co, that Ethereum Classic's been 50, or I think is in the process, or has been multiple attacks, 100 plus blocks reorged. Interesting. A successful 51% attack as well, according to the block.
Well, so, that's what it's always about with the security. That's why people are always saying, you know, Bitcoin has the most security. It has the most hash power, has the most best coders working on it. You go with a project like the Ethereum that they left behind, the Ethereum Classic. And let's see, they say, oh, the Ethereum Classic's proponents were blindsided because they're not running nodes. We're seeing some Spanish attack 50%. Let's see. Increased confirmation times. It looked like they are under attack. Multiple reports on it, like you're saying, reorgs, 51% attack. So there you go. Breaking news right there from Twitter.
Oh, damn. I'm miles away from my ledger to dump this. I have some. I'm sorry.
No one cares. But no, I should have bought that garbage when it was 75 cents. I bought some at 75 cents. I dumped it for $1.50, as I recall. I was like, sweet, $100. I'm never good at these things. I never invest the right amount at the right time, so on and so forth. But that is interesting that there's an attack on Ethereum Classic right now. Going back to what else Crypt Loco was saying, Ethereum, let's see, the hot swap. Do you think that Lightning coins will last forever because you can exchange them for Bitcoin? Does this make it useful? Does it make worth using a system? I agree. It's always going to be like Dan was saying, because reasons. There's always going to be one of those, oh, Goofy coin is good because whenever I want Bitcoin, I just swap Goofy coin for Bitcoin. And it's good. And yeah, sometimes I lose all my money in Goofy coin. Oh, wait, that's not good. So
there's other comparisons drawn between, say, Lightning being kind of almost an equivalent to Visa and MasterCard. And in that that comparison itself, there is a Visa and a MasterCard and an American Express, for example. So even there, where we've got three kind of second layer over fiat, there are competitors within that space. So again, I'm not saying there should be, but where there is or there is capacity, people like choice, and you always get people that split off. And that, you know, we got that with Bitcoin fans that were ultimate diehard Bitcoin fans that ended up splitting off into Bitcoin Cash, which then itself started splitting off. So yeah, I think there's the just because is a very good reason. It's just because people are different, just because people have different preferences, just because people's logic works in a different way. So whilst we can all see that Bitcoin is God, other people can be like, well, you know, those block times, taking it down to simplistic numbers, people can say, oh, those 10-minute block times, that makes stuff slower, thus blah, 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 compared to another blockchain, which is faster. So there's all these metrics that, and especially people from the world that, for example, think that Ripple is going to go to, you know, £10,000 because it's going to follow Bitcoin. They see Bitcoin being, you know, at the moment $4,000 and Ripple being, I don't know, 50 cents or whatever. So they think there's potential for that growth.
All right. Well, one more thing I want to recognize, Charlie Lee is perhaps the patron saint of your mother for supporting Litecoin, as Dan was saying, maybe only because he wants to go back up because he feels bad. But we want to welcome the caller. Caller, you're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Colin, and I am calling from Florida.
All right, Colin from Florida. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
Hey, yeah, thanks for answering my call. I think I have a couple things in my mind right now. One is my opinion that Litecoin is just trying to be the silver to Bitcoin's gold, and I think that's why a lot of normies really like it. People who buy it in mass and want to go up in price. It's a silver to gold type of mentality. That's my opinion. I don't think Litecoin's necessary. And then I just want to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Well, I'm in agreement. I thought Litecoin was necessary a couple of months there as a test net during our political troubles. And since then, I haven't felt it was necessary. I suppose, once again, let's say Bitcoin was really, really popular and everyone was using it and the network was jammed, and maybe the Lightning Network was really popular too and everyone using that and it was jammed, and you're like, well, I really need to send this money, and you had it on an exchange. Maybe you could trade it to Litecoin and then use it to send Litecoin to another exchange or to your friend or whatever. So as a backup network to Bitcoin, and again, no one wants to hear this. Litecoin doesn't want to hear it. It's like going back to Rick and Morty, you cut butter. Right? This butter robot with this incredible brain and cybernetic possibilities says to his master, what is my purpose? And his master, the mean and evil Rick, says to him, you cut butter. Litecoin, you're a backup project for Bitcoin. You're not Bitcoin. It's great. You've got it's like this little kid again. You're like, oh, how nice, little kid. You're trying hard. Go do it. You know, he's so cute. He's got his little banner. He's got his little Litecoin Foundation. They got their own version of Satoshi, except he won't shut up. The great thing about our version of Satoshi is he shut up. He went away and he shut up and he let Bitcoin be Bitcoin. You got this Litecoin guy telling him what Litecoin is going to be. I wonder if Ethereum Classic can get their own Vitalik, maybe Barry Silbert, somebody like that. But yeah, I don't like these cult of personalities. I don't think that the developers are bigger than the coin. They name the coin after themselves, like Zcoin. That's a joke. But, you know, so yeah, that's where I am on this. What do you think, Dan? Are you still a fan of Litecoin? Even, and again, he's doing this all for Dan's mom now. So Dan has a bias here. We have to establish.
Oh, geez. Yeah, because you know what? If she watches this and I haven't ripped on Litecoin, and I rip on Litecoin, then she's going to kill me.
Like they're saying in the chat, arise, chicken, arise.
The chat box will.
Well, okay.
Like I said.
Why though? Why Litecoin? Why? I haven't heard a good answer yet. I mean, it's the silver to Bitcoin's gold. Okay, that doesn't do a whole lot for me. And I kind of move on.
Well, remember Feathercoin used to be the Bitcoin's quarter. Feathercoin had 4 times the units of Bitcoin, twice the units of Litecoin, and we used to say Feathercoin was Bitcoin's quarter. And that doesn't mean anything. Feathercoin's not near the value of a quarter.
Yeah, it's absolutely nothing, and it's weird. Okay, so there's all kinds of coins coming out, and like the previous caller noted that there are seemingly good use cases for some of this stuff, like real estate on an ERC20. Like the blocks are being put together, but I'm not sure if the story makes sense. I mean, Factom is putting assets on the BTC chain, from the real world, and that's like all great. We're gonna have to see where it goes. I mean, scaling is still obviously an issue. Like when you send, Bitcoin here and there, for the normal user, it quote unquote seems to take a while. So to me, that's just basic user experience. Like I come from the web design world, so I do understand like user experience. So as long as the Lightning Network comes out with a really easy to use app and people are reliably able to use it, it's going to be a good movement.
I agree. And I think the main thing for these cryptos is they need to establish a use case. Bitcoin's particularly lucky because it was first. So the use case was digital money on the internet. When everyone started to get behind that and the smart people joined the project, the cypherpunks, everyone committed to this. We all could have created a copy. Hal Finney could have just copied Bitcoin early on. He could have had Halcoin. He could have been set, right? Instead, for the good of humanity, for the good of everyone that will ever use Bitcoin, Hal Finney collaborated with Satoshi. Adam Back collaborated with Satoshi. Nick Scabo, at least in some ways, collaborated with Satoshi. Gavin, all these other people, they all got on board to work together. Now, people are being dragged apart by marketing and money and becoming a billionaire and all these kind of things. But still, at its core, Bitcoin is there and Bitcoin continues.
Yeah, it's like they made an immutable, permissionless ledger, and then someone said, "Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to make one too." And down the road, now it's 2018, and we have projects where people have made their own Bitcoin, but it's not as good, and it's not permissionless, and it's not like, for instance, EOS. EOS gets on my nerves real bad.
You can't trade one token for another token. Come on.
Wait, say again. I didn't hear that.
Oh, well, when the EOS, when they first released it, they were on an EOS token. Then they switched it, and you had to change your tokens. And if you didn't switch it at a certain date, good luck. Oh well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they did that for the fundraiser, and they raised over $4 billion. So to me, that just shows people are willing to buy something that's going to give them a return. But what is the return long term of a project that is censorable and requires permission and is centralized? It's like saying, wow, Bitcoin has value because of these properties. So now I'm going to take my Bitcoin and invest in a project that has the exact opposite properties.
I do think that's an apt description of EOS, and I think that explains it well. The part that we're probably not seeing, because we're probably more liberty-minded, is that corporations might want what they're selling. Corporations might want the EOS system where you can roll back the blockchain, the EOS system where you can, blacklist, you can ban people, these kind of things. These are actually selling points if you want to recreate the current monetary system and if you want to enslave everyone. And once again, enslaving everyone is fine as long as you get $1 billion, right? People have morals, right? Whereas the rest of us want this Bitcoin, want this open system, this fair system, actually fair, not just, we pre-sold a bunch of it and secret donors and all these kinds of things. So yeah, I think it's very hard for these other projects to catch up to Bitcoin. Bitcoins, and they try to because they have to, right? They're hitching they're tying their horses to a star, right? They're tying them to a comet here. We are moving. And the other thing that I wrote down here, it says they want to make a copy of Bitcoin, and they also want the credit. They want the credit that they're a genius because they made a copy of Bitcoin and they changed something slightly. And they want the same credit that this original Satoshi should have gotten. Original Satoshi should have gotten all kinds of doctorates at universities and awards and prizes and presidential medals and mathematical awards and Nobel prizes and all this stuff. But he didn't get it. We're living with the greatest example of, I suppose, in a lot of ways, a selfless person. He created a fair system, a system of rules. He kicked it into business, and then he walked away. It's almost like the old founding fathers. Some of them were deists. They had a clockmaker idea of the universe, that God was a clockmaker, and he kicked it off, and then he walked away. And now we actually have one in the real world. So far, surviving without a founder, surviving without, I mean, Craig Wright claimed it. Some other people claimed it. Dorian didn't claim it, was labeled with it. So far, so good. No founder. All right, let's keep it going.
Oh, that was an epic way to describe it. I mean, that's the beauty of Bitcoin, the simplistic, selfless beauty of it. Censorless, permissionless. I mean, it's great. It's awesome. Why change it? Why copy it and make your own? I mean, you can. It's open source. Let's go. Let's try to make something cool. At this day and age, I don't know exactly why Litecoin has like the value that it does, other than the perception of silver to gold. Great. So I kind of want to move on from that. That was just kind of a rambling topic about, Litecoin. But so the Ledger Nano X. Have you guys seen the releases of this new product from Ledger?
Yeah,
I've only seen the tweets. I haven't read too much about it. I hear that it has Bluetooth. So naturally, I think security problem, but we also think useful, right? This is supposed to be, I'm guessing, a mobile wallet. Like I have my phone, I have my Ledger, I push some buttons, and then now I spend money when I walk around. Is that the idea?
Yeah, basically, the Ledger is now going to support the phone by being a holder of the private key. I think that's what its main function is going to be. So you're going to hold this device that's Bluetooth enabled, and it's got your keys, on the device, and then your mobile phone, you're able to use this and that, and then whenever you want to sign a transaction, boom, then your Nano's there, and you've got to confirm the transaction on your Nano. So I think it's going to have a battery on board. One, the interface has been upgraded. It's going to support up to 100 coins, and you're basically going to carry it around with you, and you're going to sign transactions, with it while you're out in the real world, doing this and that. So to me, just seeing that released at the beginning of 2019 is a huge kind of a signal that 2019 is going to be pretty epic. I mean, that's a pretty big upgrade that the Nano has really made, and I can kind of see where this is going. I could definitely see paying for groceries, with my mobile phone, with my Ledger at my side.
I hope so, but I'm not so sure right away. To me, it seems like it's not a cold wallet and it's not a hot wallet. So maybe we'll call it a warm wallet. So it's a warm wallet for people, right? You could put $100 in there. You wouldn't put $1,000 or $10,000 in there, and you could carry it around with you. I'm seeing a lot of potential. Well, first of all, it's so much harder to use than a credit card, or it's harder to use than Apple Pay. So that's going to be a problem. I think charging the device is scary. I don't charge my Trezor or Ledger. I use them sometimes and then I put them away. I think that has a better usability than, say, like, I know my iPhone, I plug it in and out, twice a day or whatever. If they don't make that port right, if you get an electrical surge, if you don't have your backup keys. So always have your backup keys. Don't put too much money in it. But I think it could be positive. Once again, though, I'm not Bitcoin merchant adoption, actually using Bitcoin in the retail world. We're not quite there. I think it's going to need a rise of all tides. You're going to have to be, well, all the consumers have Bitcoin and all the merchants want to take it. And it just so happened, woof, and it's all there. We've tried it both ways, where the merchants take it, but then they have no consumers, or the consumers go out and they have Bitcoin, but then they have no merchants. we're still at a gap there, but I think it works great for sending money around with your friends or paying off, debts or things like that. So having a warm wallet like that might be more useful. You could cover a larger bar bill. What do you think? Let's ask Dan while he's here. Dan, what do you think about Ledger's new Bluetooth wallet?
Well, it was one of my talking points actually. That it sounds pretty funky, but I like the kind of updated design. It's similar to what it used to be, but there's a bigger screen. Obviously, it has Bluetooth, so bigger attack vector. But the problem is, it doesn't make me feel like I'd be any more likely to carry it around with me and use it for general usage, because I'll be honest, I just use my phone, like one of the phone wallets, if I'm going to be carrying small amounts, because I'm not going to be worried about having that extra level of security. The Ledger for me is for my it's cold. It's for storage is cold, isn't it? That's the main thing about it. So and whenever I kind of go to a conference, I always end up finding I leave it at home because and then find some sort of alternative way of being able to use it if I really need to. So although it kind of does solve some problems, I think that from a security perspective, I do worry about carrying it around, the attack vectors from the Bluetooth, and how much more value that's going to give compared to just using a small phone wallet and QR code.
And we're seeing some agreement in the chat. They're also saying there was an idea years ago. I talked to these guys at the Miami Bitcoin conference. They had a company called Rivets. Rivets with a Z, and I think they've raised funds and spent them and raised them or whatever, but they talked about a secure enclave, a chip that they would put on the iPhones or the Androids where you would put all of the secure things like the passwords, like the private keys. And I think this is a much more usable solution where you have the one device. You need one device to pay with Bitcoin, one device to pay with Apple Pay. If you need two devices, I mean, we're getting into that whole like, do I want to be a spy or do I want to be something that makes my life easier?
Inspector Gadget.
Yeah. Everywhere you go, you got to put in your code. Or I need this and I need this. And I mean, it's practically making fun of Bitcoin people than being a new product. But I think it's kind of cute. It's an in-between product. I think it's a warm wallet, but I'm not sure what it's used for or how useful it's going to be. So.
Yeah, they announced it at CES, which is the Consumer Electronics. I don't know what the F stands for, but it's a big towards consumer electronics. So,
oh yeah, right here in Las Vegas. If I had tickets, I'd go, but I don't have tickets. So,
I mean,
Ledger, hello. Wow.
So I'm just saying the perception that the Ledger Nano X now gives to the world essentially is that there is a device where you can carry it around. It's super sexy. It's sleek. It's silver and black. It kind of looks like an iPhone, but probably not. But eventually, I think this device is going to be part of phones. Because, I mean, the phone already ate the wallet, but most people already they still carry a wallet.
Well, I think that's eventually going to change. We're going to have more cards on our phone. But yeah, I think the phone is the eventual home of a secure chip and of your Bitcoin.
It's already eaten the credit card. It's already eaten the debit card. It already ate your Geico, insurance. Like I was thinking that the other day. I'm like, why do I carry a wallet in a phone? And the reason is because people I have to interact with don't yet take Apple Pay or Google Pay or, whatever the pays are these days.
Well, I think we're getting closer to that, and I think it's a step on the way. We'll have to see. It's always good to have a Bitcoin product out at CES. So we'll have to see how it goes with the Ledger and the Trezor. They're also saying in the chat, they think that the part of the Ledger is a play for a platform. They want you to hold your crypto assets, I guess we're calling them now. They want you to hold your coins and tokens and things in their system. This one apparently has more memory, so it can have more of these weird tokens that need more memory, so on and so forth. So it is, once again, an altcoin play. What's wrong with your old ledger? Oh, my old ledger only holds 10 altcoins. My new ledger holds 100 altcoins. Oh, that's nothing. I got a new ledger that holds 1,000 altcoins. Oh, so you need a reason to upgrade. You need a reason to buy.
This is what they want. Whether it's like, right that we got here, we're here. and there are girls on Twitter that love Litecoin. It's just a fact.
I don't know about that, man. I think again, to be a girl on the internet, unfortunately, you have to prove it, and then that you really love Litecoin, or that you're just. I mean, yeah, there's girls on Twitter that love gold too, but not for the right reasons. I don't know,
dude. It's just what it is. I mean, Tron, whether their purchase of their BitTorrent, the purchase of BitTorrent is going to actually do anything. It just sounds really cool, and it makes people add Tron to their phone, like their Blockfolio. They put Tron on there, so they're going to put it in their Nano Ledger too. I think that it's good to get out and talk to people who have no idea what Bitcoin is, and the people that still you say to them, "Oh, it's time to use Bitcoin," and they say, "Oh, I just don't trust Bitcoin," immediately revealing they have no idea what they're doing.
I prefer Ripple. Ripple's a lot safer.
I'm like, what do you mean you don't trust it? Like, isn't everything but Bitcoin like not trust? Bitcoin is like the trustworthy thing. I don't know. Okay, so anyway, I can clearly just see that you don't know what you're talking about. Let me try to. There's people out there. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of people who still don't know. And for Nano to announce this really cool, sexy product that's going to get people interested, and they're going to serve the market. There's Litecoin girls on Twitter. It's just a fact. Thousands.
All right. Well, we'll check that out. And also, I agree that Tron buying BitTorrent, even if it doesn't do anything, even if this new token thing goes nowhere, it is a hot move. It does make the press. I wish maybe Litecoin or Bitcoin had bought BitTorrent. Although, again, what would they do with it? Maybe, and again, it's all going to make Bram really mad because he had that Chia thing. But thanks so much for the call. I think we had another phone call coming in, so we're going to let you go for now. But give us a call anytime.
All right.
Thanks so much. And other caller on Gmail, if you want to call us right back, you can call us. We'll try to take one more phone call. We are getting very close to the 2-hour mark, and we're running out of time. They're saying in the chat, they announced the new Nano at CES. They're targeting the mainstream. Unfortunately, they're targeting the mainstream with a product that sounds difficult to use and also stressful. Do you want to carry your hot wallet in your wallet on your keychain, banging around with all your other keys in your pocket, taking it with you place? I'm sorry to bum the Ledger people out because I'm sure they worked very hard on this and it's a cool product, I'm sure. But just the actual usability, when I just think it through as a thought experiment, I don't know I really want one. So let's see.
Yeah, it goes down to that kind of oh geez. So I've got an automatic
dock.
I've got an automatic light, except it obviously thinks I'm
you have to send more tokens to your light if you want it to work.
There we go. There we go.
Oh,
That's it. Yeah, send it some. I need to send it some Litecoin. Yeah, so
it's puns.
That same old thing that people say you're not going to carry around your entire, if you had a bag of gold in a safe, you're not going to carry that around with you all the time. And it goes the same with your Nano or your Ledger, or your Trezor or your Bitbox or whatever. You're not going to carry around that kind of your entire life savings on you. So you might have two different ones. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I think it's kind of, it does appeal to the mainstream because it's kind of a new quirky thing, especially obviously not everyone out there is a full-on Bitcoin extremist. So Bitcoin extreme. That should be the next sport, by the way. To the max. So there are people that still love altcoins out there, and they love the shit coins, and they want a place to store their shit coins, which is shiny and has a slightly bigger screen and has Bluetooth. So it has got a bit of sex appeal, I think, to the main mass market. And like Audio Video Tweaker pointed out, it's at CES. They're obviously they want the mainstream to know about this product. If people's worry is security, then actually I think it is doing good for the crypto sphere, because it's showing people that there's this technology that makes, as long as you manage it properly, it will be you do have a secure version of way of holding your private keys.
Well, I definitely see what you're saying. I could definitely see a bunch of douchebags standing around a table over drinks, comparing their Ledger Bluetooth wallets. Oh, I got mine in a silver case. Oh, I got some EOS tokens on mine. Oh, that's amazing. But
you're
yeah,
lost.
it's
American
definitely the way-
Psycho.
Yeah,
Carrying
the cards. Yeah, yeah. Oh, this one, mine came in bone. Oh, bone. I can't believe they think that Malcolm's card is better than mine. Yeah, I know, it's so good. The yeah, the little wallets. No, I don't think they're gonna take off. I'm not sure what it's used for, but I think it's a good alternative. I did know some early Bitcoiners who would carry around a mysterious silver briefcase cuffed to their hand. So I think this is a little bit better than that. It's a little bit more discreet. But again, do I want my ledgery thing in my pocket with my keys getting all scratched up? Do I want, how careful do I want my you have your money with you at all times, unless it gets all scratched up and destroyed. And then I haven't even gotten into the idea of the Bluetooth and can I sniff it? Can I come up to your wallet? Like the great thing with the credit cards, you've seen it. The scanner guy comes up and he goes beep, and he scans some guy's butt, and like the butt makes the transaction. Can I do that now with your ledger thing? Can I hack your Bluetooth? But here we go. One more call. Caller, you're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Mark Benjamin. Yeah, I have a bit of an odd question. I wonder if it's possible to reintegrate maybe some of the more relatively useful altcoins back into Bitcoin and make them codependent. Like, not in the way of I buy this coin to make my coin worth something through exchanges. I'm actually talking about like with the ASIC problem, can we use altcoins to carry help with the hash rate, or maybe make it easier for people that are relatively poor to use some of the different properties of Bitcoin, or use the different properties of even Ether or EOS or etc. I'm not a coder or a programmer, so I was just wondering if that was possible because.
Sure. I think there's been some projects similar to this. Originally, Namecoin is merged mined with Bitcoin. The Namecoins just come out at the same time, and the project coexist with Bitcoin. Litecoin has a similar situation with Dogecoin. Dogecoin is merged mined with Litecoin, so you can't really be a Dogecoin miner anymore. Although I was, and I once got a whole block of Dogecoin. Yes. And now you just mine Litecoin, and I think you get the Dogecoin. So I think they could be worked back in. And what you might see in the future is with the Liquid Sidechains project and these other sidechain projects, that these old ideas, or maybe some of these new ideas like Bram's idea with Chia and this environmental friendly digital currency, stuff like this, could be rolled into a sidechain. Things like Zcash or Monero, some of these other projects, maybe not compatible, maybe a lot of twists and things, but they could be rolled into a sidechain and relaunched with these new ideas. Maybe taking Namecoin, putting it in a sidechain, relaunching it with these new ideas. So I think it could be possible. There's a lot of technical issues. I'm not saying it's just easy.
Yeah, I know that would be hard-potted to pull off, because I think I think the altcoin thing already happened, and I don't see them just going away. But at the same time, I see all this tribalism. I'm just like, what? I see so many great ideas, but they can't scale, as you were talking about before. So I was wondering, okay, what if, yes, they have their own hash rate and you could just hash on that, but what if like Ethereum had a node on Bit? I will use node as like a point of something to mine, like maybe mine friendly, so you can mine Ethereum with mine Bitcoin while Ethereum's doing their proof of stake thing, while at the same time mining Bitcoin, or maybe different coins that might shrink the amount of energy needed for such and such task, or building a whole literal internet payment system like that is one of the only useful Ethereum tokens for website payouts.
Well, I agree. Some of these altcoins do have good ideas, and it would be neat if they actually worked. And I agree with you. I think there is a way, And the way is probably going to be these side chains. Certainly just myself, and as an example, I could have launched like a Mad Bitcoin or a World Crypto Network coin or something like that. And it would have been like Litecoin. It would have been a copy of Litecoin with different units or whatever. And people would have had to mine it. And if people stopped mining Mad Bitcoin or World Crypto Coin or whatever, everyone would lose their money. Right? No one would be able to move their money around. So you wouldn't be able to make any decisions and everything would be frozen. So naturally, of course, I didn't do that. I didn't want everyone to lose their money. The same thing, you look at an ERC20 token. If Ethereum has a problem like CryptoKitties, their network is all jammed up. You can't move your money around. It's almost the same as not having it. If they keep having these jam problems and they're not useful, you can't move the money around. What good is it? So looking at a side chain as a solution where it doesn't have to be mined. I don't know how it works, but it uses the Bitcoin network's energy to, update the side chain or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be mined. It exists as long as Bitcoin exists. That seems like a good idea. That seems like a better way to print some tokens and to try this thing out, because like you say, it's about the scaling and the stability and the long-term aspects of this. Because yeah, you can do it short-term, and there's a lot of startup ideas that you can fake with real humans running it, or a Ponzi scheme or something allegedly like BitConnect. These things work for a short amount of time and everyone feels really good. It's all working. And then it stops working. And that's the problem, because that's everyone gets wrecked. Not just people that didn't buy or didn't sell or whatever, but everyone involved in the project gets wrecked. And that's, for me, that was not an acceptable outcome. I guess a lot of other people are much more rash, and they're okay with people losing all their money and they just don't care. But that's their own choice. They have to, choose that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you with a lot of those points. Actually, that's what I meant by kind of a codependence. Like, since they already exist as their own coins, the coins that survive, and I'm going by the basis that the coins that survive this current great bear of 2018 will actually be the ones that, at least at the very base level, care enough for their investors and the project as a whole. And maybe we could kind of push them in the direction as, okay, you could have your own little network here, but if you have a corresponding, I'm going to use the word node because my vocabulary when it comes to like technical stuff isn't that grand. Node of like as your project may be somewhat successful, a node of that is in Bitcoin in that side chain, or as a side chain, and it kind of has a codependent use case and codependent what's the word I'm trying to come up with? They rely on each other to survive. And if it's
sure, like a parasite or like different, not like a parasite though. I see what you're saying though.
Yeah. Well, more
cohabitating or co-living, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like cleaning off the big animal.
Yeah, I think we could offer them that, but I don't think we could get them to take that. There's something really nice about being your own little dictator, right? What did Milton say when Satan fell into the pit? It's better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven, right? And you're supposed to take that as a wrong example. You're supposed to be saying, no, serving in heaven would be pretty good. We'd be working together on a project. It'd be a real positive experience, But if you rule in hell, like I would say, maybe not to be mean to them, but just to say offhand, Vitalik or Zuko or Charlie Lee, even, they have their own little club. They're the leader of the club. They're the founder. They're the genius. They're the one. And they make the decisions, like Dan Larimer for EOS or whatever. He makes the decisions. That could never happen in Bitcoin. Even looking at Brian Armstrong's tweet storm from the other day. Brian, very successful guy, Coinbase, helped people get Bitcoin legitimately, even with all this altcoin and all this nonsense now. Legitimate good guy in the old days, billionaire, all this stuff. He wanted political control over Bitcoin. He wanted the ability to say, let's double the blocks now because my business relies on transactions, and transactions have to be cheap so that people make a lot of them. So my business makes a lot of fees. Let's double the blocks. Let's do it. He couldn't get it through. He couldn't politically control Bitcoin. So yeah, I think it would be nice if they would take that, if we could offer it to them, but it's going to be tough to convince them because, You know how it's like. And it's just a human thing. I'm not even saying that not they're bad people or whatever. It's just you get to be the boss, and you like being the boss, and you want to stay the boss. So
yeah. Well, we could just wait till they decentralize enough for their voice matters slightly less, because if their network were to grow to a certain extent, maybe some people will be interested in that. So I'm just saying that like something to put in their ear, like an incentive, like a long-term incentive. Like, hey, just so you know, you could always put a little bit of yourself into Bitcoin to make sure your network stays alive, because Bitcoin is king, depending on your beliefs, beliefs on that.
See, I think that's a really nice thing to say, and a good note to end on, that we're not Bitcoin extremists, and we're not Bitcoin maximalists or Bitcoin terrorists. We're compassionate. We're willing to even welcome them back. And I've said often that we would welcome Roger back. We would welcome the Bcashers back. You can always come back. And I think that's going to be a good note to close on. So thanks so much for your call. Give us a call anytime.
Have a great day.
All right. And we're headed to the end of the show. No more calls. Like I was saying, compassion. This is really important. This is one of our things. And I get all these comments on Twitter that you shouldn't I shouldn't allow people to talk about B-Rhodium, or I shouldn't allow people to talk about Bitcoin SV. I've had two contributors here, Andy with B-Rhodium and now Shem with Bitcoin SV, who have, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe they're paid, maybe they bought some, maybe they are interested in the technology. They're falling in love with these projects, and they're converting, and they're becoming different people or whatever. Should I stomp down on them and silence them? That's what I'm getting from a lot of people on Twitter. They're like, you should silence anyone that talks about anything other than Bitcoin immediately. And even from yesterday,
resort to censorship.
Yeah, resort to censorship. Like everyone,
you should resort to censorship. Yeah.
I was like, no, I should let them burn out on their own, because their projects don't have any value. And if I'm wrong, and if SV goes way up and Rhodium goes way up or whatever, which Ethereum did, we were down on that and it went way up and then back down like I told you it would. But now they're saying it's going to go back up. I like doing all these hand motions. It's fun for me. But no, I mean, we have to let them have their say. We have to give them a chance, and we can kick them out and so on and so forth. We'll just wait till later. They'll just burn out. So that's my strategy on that. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing this Bitcoin show, keep talking about Bitcoin like I've been talking about it. And if people want to, burn me down with that other thing, they can do that. But like he said, we're compassionate. We'll welcome you back. We'll welcome the Bcashers back. We'll welcome Roger back. Dan, do you have anything to say in closing before we run through the news really fast on the exit of the show? Because it's a 2-hour show. We're doing this every week on Monday now, but only for 2 hours and only on Monday. So, Dan, go.
No, I think I covered the only thing I was going to bring up was was actually about the but maybe a long talking point, and I can't remember if you guys have covered it yet, but the old CoinDesk top 10 and the controversy around that, because that was pretty interesting. There was a lot of daggers flying, let's say. And although it's an interesting list.
One more topic for Dan. Well, the interesting thing I thought was that they've started kicking off people from the previous years. So it's as if Andreas has no influence anymore. So I find that to be really weird. That's kind of slanting their list. It's more like who's new and who's influential. So that was strange. Also, I mean, it's tough for me to say this because I did try to launch a digital trading card company, and I do think it's a good idea technically that it works. You can create a rare asset, you can distribute the asset, and you can own the asset. So I think Bitcoin trading cards are pretty cool, or crypto cards or whatever they're going to be called. But as far as doing them in an article and to turn the people that you're covering into items that you're selling, I think is a real questionable line that they just kind of skipped and ran across. I don't think they had any kind of I hope they had some debate and some discussion and some meetings, because they made some big, bold choices. Because CZ from Binance is a card now, and he's a card that's been sold and promoted by a supposed news website called CoinDesk. And, I don't want to be the pot calling the kettle black or whatever, blah, blah, you like cards, well, you like collectibles, blah, blah, but yeah, you guys kind of lost the journalism edge there. And once, like Jon Stewart was saying all the time, he was like, you know, I'm the idiot on the comedy news show. You guys at CNN are holding me to this new standard, but it's you guys that should have the standard. You should have the journalism. You should have the ability, and as well as the money. You know, my show here, etc. I tell you all the time, you know, views are down, donations are down, Patreons are down. You know, we need donations and money. If I was going to sell a Mad Bitcoins card or whatever, now would be the time. But CoinDesk, you think they should be fine? They should have lots of money, lots of advertising, not have to resort to this, you know, pretty flimsy marketing excuse that they did there with the cards. So I'm not so much about the people on the list. I've stopped caring about that long ago. They're clearly not the most influential. Even to see Trace Mayer not included when he launched this whole proof of keys thing with a tweet and not much of a website. Yeah. Incredible influence. Must be listed. Charlie Lee, we talked about him for an hour today. Not listed. So it is confusing when they have this idea that you can just, you know, push old people off the list. That's a strange choice. I thought the Crypto Kitty cards were a strange choice. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think I did read that the readers were consulted, but
and the proceeds go to charity. Proceeds go to charity. Yeah, but so what?
But yeah, I did think it's kind of quite confusing. You know, characters like you know, you said like Trace Mayer, Andreas, that you know, the fact that they're not on there just seems pretty odd. And I know that you kind of got to open the playing field to everyone, but it's not like Andreas and Trace have just stopped doing stuff. You know, they've been pretty active. So yeah, but that maybe CoinDesk mitigated any form of Bitcoin, you know, focus by calling themselves CoinDesk instead of Bitcoin Desk.
And Bitcoin Magazine is back with Bitcoin again. That's good to see. I don't know why they ever left it. And definitely to agree with, they're saying in the chat, Audio Video Tweaker writes, did you see the hit piece by Craig Wright hating on Andreas as a shitcoiner? And I thought that was funny. And once again, another reason not to believe in Craig Wright and not to believe in Bitcoin SV. I certainly don't believe in it at all. And when I do interview Shem about it, and I will try to talk to Shem soon on the air so that we can get his opinion on this and get him to, you know, talk back here about why he likes SV. But you got this Satoshi that can't prove it. And now he's attacking Andreas, who is just a normal guy, talks about Bitcoin. I mean, I know he's famous and everything, and it's cool, and he wrote books and things, but to me, still just a normal guy telling the truth about Bitcoin, speaking from his heart, being a scientist, you know, reading a bunch of stuff, trying to bring it back to you with the evidence. So to attack him was strange. But once again, look at the position he's in. What else can Craig Wright do to promote that Bitcoin SV? What else can Charlie Lee do to promote Litecoin? I'm not saying they're totally desperate, but we're seeing some desperate actions. So what do you think, Dan? One more question on this exciting Craig Wright story before we run towards the exit.
Oh dear, sorry. I'm going on sub 5%, so I'm suddenly
panicked. Oh, battery.
But I haven't actually. Yeah, I haven't read up on, which is why I'm a bit dark. I haven't read up on exactly what Craig Wright said, but I did see the kind of headline that he called Andreas a shitcoiner.
To be fair, you know, Andreas did promote Ethereum, has a book about it.
That's true. Yeah, someone pointed out as well that it's covered in bugs, rather than I think on. Yeah. So, but yeah, Craig Wright likes to say stuff that's just going to rile people up, you know. For example, he kind of went somewhere and said, I'm getting really dark now. He kind of went somewhere and said, I have more money than your entire country. So, you know, he's out to piss people off.
Yeah, that's rude. That's not a nice thing to say. under any circumstance or situation. Yeah. I saw something else. Someone said, Satoshi said something nice to someone back. You know, if I can't I don't have time to explain it or whatever. And they're like, yeah, if Craig Wright was Satoshi, it would have said, F this, I explain and piss to you, blah, 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 all these curse words and stuff. It was funny. But I think we're running out of time on Bitcoin Talk Show. We're going to be back next Monday. Just a quick recap of all the news from today. We talked about Wired and Bitcoin being exposed as an alternate aim of making money. And I know the writer's saying this negatively and that's all about the money, but I took it more positively that, yes, we are creating money. We're creating Bitcoin. It is money. Exciting. We talked about the UK exchange CoinFloor launching physically delivered Bitcoin futures. So they'll bring the contract to you. This is something that people who trade futures want. So it's good. It's good for Bitcoin. We're going to sell more futures. We talked a lot about Litecoin founder Charlie Lee and his labeling of Bitcoiners as extremists, Bitcoin extremists, going far beyond maximalists. Some in the chat even calling us terrorists. Then we talked about Charlie. Just an update on his poll. What are you? Bitcoin extremist, 9%. That's pretty high. That's almost as high as no coiners, who have 10%. Above that, altcoin maximalists with 33% and Bitcoin maximalists with 48%. Charlie better watch out. 48% of his audience is Bitcoin maximalists. We checked out, we haven't really checked it, but here's the mainstream media recap. It's all about the price, the price, the price, and the price. None of them predicted it, but Bitcoin rockets above 4,000 as positive news. Bitcoin above 4,000, price hits a 2-week high. What are Bitcoin whales? And do they really control the market? Kidnappers demand 5 Bitcoin to reserve 9 people. And so on and so forth. The prices leaped higher. Here's why. It's great that they tell you about it afterwards, but they never know beforehand. Bitcoin hits 2-week high above 4,000. The cryptocurrency traded to its highest level since Christmas Day. Oh. Bitcoin tops 4,000 amid green crypto markets. Japan may approve a Bitcoin ETF, says Bloomberg source. And finally, Bitcoin pushes past 4,000 as technical gauge turns positive. Oh, it's funny how it turns positive just after you stop looking at it. If only they'd tell us beforehand. So once again, the price of Bitcoin is $4,022.30. We're headed towards the end of the show. Just a reminder, please support this show by donating to our Litecoin fundraiser. You can pause the screen right now and get your wallet. You can donate $10 or $20 or as much as you'd like. You could even buy the whole fundraiser right here. We are 53% towards our goal of bringing mad Bitcoins back from Malta. If you donate to this poll, you're saying that I want more mad Bitcoins and that you enjoyed our content from Malta, Frankfurt, Riga, and Prague, all of which we did interviews at Bitcoin conferences. You can check it out right here on the World Crypto Network. I think we're running out of time, but we'll be back again next Monday to take your calls on Bitcoin Talk Show. Our goal for the schedule is Monday Bitcoin Talk Show, Wednesday interview show, Friday Bitcoin group. Tuesday and Thursday, I'll be doing administrative things and trying to improve the World Crypto Network in other ways other than doing shows. But that's the plan for the new year. Welcome to 2019. This is the World Crypto Network. And until next time, bye-bye.